Hi, this is Scott Marshburn with eCabinets Tips and Tricks. This is part 4 on formatting eCabinets cut lists in Excel. In part 3, we cleaned up the macro and made some message boxes to hide the edge banding and inset carvings. In this video, we're going to improve on those message boxes. We're going to make them more user-friendly, as well as a couple other tricks, so be sure you stay tuned and see how I done it. In part 3, I showed you how you could clean up the macro that I recorded and make it quite a bit faster, as well as I showed you how you can make some message boxes to ask you if you want to hide your inset carvings or your edge banding columns. And if you watched that video, you saw how that these particular message boxes were not all that great. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you how you can make a subroutine to check the edge banding column and the inset carving column to see if you actually have edge banding or if you have any inset carvings. And then if you don't, it will then bring up the message box asking you if you want to hide it or not. So it'll give you a chance to, even if you don't have any edge banding or any inset carvings, it'll still give you the opportunity to not hide it. What I'm going to do here is, where we have our original message boxes, I'm going to comment those out. What I've done here was I created a couple of different modules, and I named this one here hide edge banding, and I named this one hide inset carvings. If I double click on this, it'll bring me into that module. I gave that sub a name and I called it edge band check, and on this one right here I called it carve check. Now we're going to be using those names, but what I got is I got range. Let's get into edge banding here. What I got is I got range f2.select range selection selection.indexldown.select. Now I got a hold of that code from going into my format sheet component listing here, the one that I recorded, and I found that line of code, or a line of code similar to it, and that would be right here, range h1.select and range selection selection.indexldown.select. Now sometimes it's hard to remember the exact way to word this code, so what I do is I got me a Word document here, and I take code like that I might need later on down the road. Now this is just an example, but I put a comment here, select a range of cells, and then I copy and paste that code into my Word document so that I don't have to go searching for code in my VBA modules to find something like similar to what I need. I can just copy this and paste it into the module and then modify, the selection that I want. So that's a good idea to do, and like I said, I do that a lot for a lot of different code. But what I done was I created a new module, so I'm going to show you how to do that. If you're in your project window here, now if you don't see this, you can go into view, and this would be your project explorer. You could click on that and it'll come up. So if I X out of this and I go view, project explorer, there it is, and I'm working in my personal XLB workbook, and I'm going to create a new module. So I'm just going to click anywhere in here, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go insert module, and it'll insert a new module, and it numbers it automatically, and in this case it's module 3, and it's got it selected, and we're in the area to start the code. So what I want to do is I want to start my sub, so I need to type the word sub and then a space and then the sub's name. In this case I'm just going to type the word name, and I'm going to hit enter, and it automatically puts two parentheses here, open and close parentheses, at the end of the name, and then in sub, and in between this is where all the code goes. So I would just copy and paste that code. That would get us started there. So let me try this so I don't have to go searching, and I'm going to highlight this, I'm going to right click, I'm going to click copy, and I'm going to go back into my module here that I just started. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click paste. And right there's the code. Now the only thing I need to do is continue on with my code that I need to bring up my message boxes. I already got all that done and I'm going to walk you through it, but I'm not going to need this, so I'm just going to remove that module. So in order to remove a module, you can right click on the module and you got an option here, remove module 3. When you click on that, it's going to give you a message box here asking you, do you want to export it before removing it? If you want to, you can click yes. If not, you can click no. So let's get into hide edge banding here. And like I said, I got my range F2.select. Now I don't want to select F1 because the only thing I want to analyze here is from the very first row that has data in it all the way down to the very last row that has data in it. So I got F2.select, range selection, selection.indexL down. Now this is a lowercase l. It is not the number 1. If you type this by hand and you type the number 1, it's not going to work. So we're gonna be working with all the cells that is in that selection. So I need to start my code out with the word with. So I've got with, and with what? With the selection. And I got a variable here, and I've named it cell count. Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna count the total number of cells that is in that selection. So I've got cell count equals selection.cells.count, and that's going to give us the total number of cells in that selection. Then I got end with. So let's see what happens when I step through that code. I'm going to hit F8 to debug, and when it executes that line right there, when I hit F8 again, it highlighted that whole range right there that has data in it. So with selection, right now cell count is empty. If I hit F8, when I hit F8 again, it's going to count the number of cells. It's saying it's got 162 cells selected. So let me reset that. Now I've got another variable, and it's called none count. Okay, and I got it set to 0. What I'm going to do is trap in this variable the number of times that the word none occurs in this selection. So I've got it, you need to set it to something, so I got it set to 0, and then I'm using another with statement. I'm saying with selection, and then I've got a for next loop. Now there's all different types of for next loops, but this one right here, since we're dealing with the selection and we want to count the number of times the word none occurs in that selection, I'm using for each. Okay, so I'm going for each cell in the selection, and then I got an if statement. And what I'm saying is that if the cell value equals none, then none count equals none count plus 1. So what it's going to do is every time it sees the word none, it's going to add 1 to the none count. And I got an end if. If you got an if, you got to have an end if. And then I got next cell, because we want to go to the next cell. So let's step through that code. I'm going to put a stop marker right here, and I'm going to run it, and when it gets there, it's going to stop it. So now I can just remove that stop marker, and I can hit F8. If we look right here on the cell count, it's saying 162. If I hit F8, if I hover over my none count, right now it's 0. And now it's 1 because it went to that cell. It counted that cell and added 1 to it. Now the next one should be 2. So it's going to the next cell, and when it executes that, it's saying 2. Now when it gets to this cell right here, it's going to skip over that. That would be number 6, cell number 6. So let me do that. Right now we're on 2 there, so F8. Now it's going to say 3, 4, 5. Now, since cell number 6 has something other than the word none, when I hit F8, it's going to jump right to end if. It's not even going to count it. See, end if. Then next cell, and it's going to keep doing that all the way to the end of the selection or the range that we have selected. So let me put a stop marker right here and run that. And if I hover over none count, you can see that I have 157 instances of the word none, and I have 162 cells selected. Let me get rid of that stop marker, and what I've got here is I got another if statement, and what I'm saying is that if none count equals cell count, in other words, if they're the same number of instances of the word none as there are cells selected, then I want to bring up this message box, and I've got answer equals message box. You do not have edge banding. Would you like to hide this column? And then it's a VB yes no message box, and I got the title hide edge banding. So I got another if statement. If answer equals VB yes, in other words, if I click on yes, then the range that I have selected and that entire column dot hidden equals true. So selection dot entire column dot hidden equals true. It's going to hide that column if I click yes. Now I have an option to click no. If I do, it's just going to go right to the end of the sub there, or it's going to go to end if and then end sub. So let's step through that and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and go F8, and you see it went right to end if. Let me reset the code, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to autofill this all the way down, so it's none all the way down there. So let me bring up my Visual Basics editor here, and I'm just going to hit my run button, and it's saying you do not have edge banding. Would you like to hide this column? If I click yes, it's going to hide it, as you can see. So all that's working good. So what I done was I just highlighted all the code between sub and end sub. I just highlighted it and copied it into my new module here, my inset carving module. And then I changed the column selection here, or the where I selected F2, I changed that to G2. And then I changed my prompt from hide edge banding to hide inset carvings. And that's the only thing I had to change. So after I got all that, what I need to do now is go into my format sheet component listing macro here, the one that I recorded earlier and modified, and down here I'm going to leave this for now. I'm going to go right here at the end of end if, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to type the word call. Now you don't need the word call, but I like to put that there just so that later on I come in and look at this code, I know I'm calling up another subroutine, and I need my hide edge banding. I need that sub's name, not the module name, but the sub name, and only the sub name. I don't need the word sub, and I don't need these parentheses here. So I'm going to hit Control C to copy, and I'm going to come back into my format sheet component listing, and I'm going to hit Control V to paste, and I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to do that for my other sub there. So I'm going to go into hide inset carvings, and I'm going to grab that name, Control C and Control V. Now when I run that code, if there is not any edge banding, it's going to ask me, do you want to hide it? If there's not any inset carvings, it's going to ask me if I want to hide that. But let me show you something real quick. What would happen if I tried to execute this code after this worksheet has already been formatted? So let me hit Control Shift and S, and I'm getting an error. If I hit debug, it's going to highlight this block of code right here, and what it's trying to do is do a text to column in a situation that it has no text to evaluate. So That's what's causing that error. I'm going to show you how you can handle that. Let me reset the code here. Now what I'm going to show you is just a basic way of handling errors, but this is important to remember this. Now if you don't want to put this error handling code in here until you know your code is performing properly. If you put that in here before you've tested it, what's going to happen is if you have something wrong with your code, you're not going to get that message and you won't know what's going on. So make sure you test your code out. Try it on a couple of different jobs, and then you could come in here and you can put this error handling code in here. But that error handling code is on space error, and then the word go to, and that needs to be one word, and I'm going to type the word ending, and that's just a variable there. When I click somewhere or hit enter, it's going to format the text just like it wants it, and it's all going to be blue there, so I know that's working. Now what do I want to do? Well, I want to exit the sub. I want to get out of the sub altogether, but I also want a message box telling me that, hey, this macro's already been run. And what this is going to do is let me block this out here. Let me comment it out and I'll show you what it's going to do. Basically it's going to do this here. If I run that sub right now and I got this error, it's going to do the same thing as if I just click end. Okay, that's all it's going to do. It's just going to exit the sub and be done with it. So let me uncomment that, and I'm going to come down to the ending. I'm going to come all the way down to the end of my subroutine here, and I'm going to type the word ending, and I need a colon. It's important to have the colon there, and I'm going to hit enter. Now I want a message box, but I don't want a message box like these. I don't want one that is going to perform some more code if I click OK or yes or whatever. I just want a general message box, so I don't need a variable. I just need to type the word message box and then space. I don't need this parentheses, and matter of fact, you don't want the parentheses, because if you put that in there, it's going to think that, hey, you need a variable, so you're going to get an error message come up. So I'm going to type the word message box, MSG box, and hit my space key or my space bar there, and it's asking me for a prompt, and I'm going to put my prompt in there, what I want to say. So I got a quote and I got my prompt. The prompt is, this worksheet is already formatted, click OK to continue. Now I'm going to put comma, and I want a VBOK only, and comma, and I want my title, and my title is worksheet is formatted, and I'm going to put my end quote there, and that's all I need. So now when I run this code, if it's already been run, then it's going to bring this message box up. So let me run the code and show you what it does. It says this worksheet is already formatted, click OK to continue. So I'm going to click OK, and it just went to the end there, got right out of the sub. Now since I have this message box in here, if the worksheet has not already been formatted, it's going to go through and do everything just as normal, but also it's going to jump right to this message box. So let me show you that. I'm going to hit Control Shift and S, and it's saying you do not have inset carvings. Do you want to hide them? Yes, I want to hide them. Now it's saying this worksheet is already formatted, click OK to continue. Now if you're okay with that and you want to leave that, that's fine, but I want to show you how you can keep that from happening. What I want to do is right here after my last call carve check here, I want to hit enter, and I'm going to type exit sub, and that's at the end of the code that will be performed if the worksheet has not already been formatted. So what's going to happen is after it does this, it's just going to exit the sub. So let's see what happens. Let me bring up another one. Cut list 3 here. I'm going to hit Control Shift and S, and it's saying you don't have inset carvings, you want to hide it. I'm going to say yes, and it's all done. It didn't bring that message box up. So if I run it again now, Control Shift and S, it's saying it's already been formatted. Click OK to continue, and there you go. Now if you notice, what we've been doing is we've been modifying the original sheet component listing worksheet here, and it got rid of all the extra stuff in the cabinet name. Now there's a lot of valuable information in that cabinet name. What if you don't want to get rid of all that? What I'm going to do on another couple of videos, and I'm going to show you how you can automatically add a new worksheet and give that worksheet a name and transfer all the original data from the sheet component listing to that worksheet, and then modify it just like we done here, which will leave you with the original sheet component listing, so that later on you could go in and work with this cabinet name. Like for example, you can actually extract the cabinet sizes from the cabinet name so that you can create a cabinet size report and use that for other stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for those videos, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you can get all my latest tips and tricks as I come up with them. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.